Term 5, Term 6, Lesson 25. And this is a Unit 5 checkup. Okay, so I'm going to do these slides a little bit differently. I'm going to give you 5 slides. In total, there'll be 21 questions. I'd like you to have a go at these on your own, all 5 slides. So for each slide, you'll need to press pause while you complete that slide, and then press play when you need the next questions. There's 2 or 3, I can't remember now, on each slide. Once you've finished all 5 slides, then I'll go through the answers with you. If you could mark your work in a different colour pen, that would be really helpful for you, because it will highlight the bits that you need to work a little bit harder on, and it will highlight the bits that you are remembering. If there's really a question that you can't do, just leave a little space so that when I go through them, you can fill in the details for that question, okay? I think I've basically said what I've written there. Otherwise, you can just press pause on this slide and reread what I've typed up here, okay? So let's get going. First slide, first 3-4 questions. Okay, press pause, have a go at these questions, and then press play for the next slide. Okay, once again, press pause on this slide, have a go at the questions, and then press play when you're ready for the next slide. Okay. The next slide, next 4 questions, press pause, press play when you're ready for the next question. Okay, we're nearly there. Press pause again, have a go at these questions, and then press play, possibly for the last question. Last slide, last 5 questions. Have a go at these and press play when you've completed everything, and we'll go through the answers. Okay, so back to the first slide. What fraction of each shape is shaded? Okay, so if we look at A, there's 1 part shaded and there's 6 parts altogether. So remember, it's the part you're looking at over the parts altogether. So we've got 1 part shaded, there's 6 parts altogether. So B, we've got 3 parts shaded and there's 5 parts altogether. Oh, I've nipped onto question 2. Choose one fraction from the cloud to complete this statement. 1/4 is larger than, so if I just highlight the 1/4, so 1/4 is larger than, so we want the ones that are smaller. So if you remember from your fractions, like if you're cutting a pizza up into 4 bits, you'll get a fairly big bit, but if you're cutting it into 8 bits, you'll get quite a small slice. So the bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. Okay, so if we look at 1/3, this is a smaller number than 4, but it's actually a bigger size fraction. 1/2, 2 is smaller than 4, but it's a bigger fraction. Okay, so the bigger the denominator's the bottom number, the smaller the actual fraction size is. So from the cloud, 1/5 isn't there, 1/6 is, 1/7 is, but 1/8 isn't. So you could have had 1/6 or 1/7 for that answer. Copy and complete each statement using more than or less than. Okay, 4/9 is less than 8/9. You've only got 4 bits. There's my mouse, here he is. You've only got 4 bits of 9. And this one's got 8 bits of 9, so this is more. Okay, so you point towards the smaller side. Oh, we went on. 3/8 is actually more than 1/4. Okay, If we changed this to eighths, we would have times 2 to make 8 times 2. We would have 2 eighths. This is equivalent to 2 eighths. So 2 eighths is actually less than 3 eighths. So we point towards the smaller side. So for this one, we've got thirds and fifths. Okay, I could look at this fraction ball. I've got 1/3 and I've got 1/5. So remember I said the bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. And we're only looking at one part of each. So the 1/5 is going to be the smaller one. So point towards the smaller number. Copy and complete these equivalent fractions. So 3/7 is equal to 12 somethings. So what do you have to do to 3 to make it 12? Okay, so think about your 3 times table. 3 times 4 will make 12. And remember, whatever you do to the top of the fraction, you've got to do the same to the bottom of the fraction. So we need to multiply the bottom by 4. So 7 times 4 is 28. So 3/7 is equivalent to 12 28ths. 30 40ths. What do you have to do to the 40 to get 8 as an answer? So instead of multiplying, we're going to divide. So we have to think, how many times does 8 go into 40? So we've got 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. That's 5 times. So we have to divide by 5. That means we have to divide the top by 5. So 30 divided by 5 is 6. So 30 40ths is equivalent to 6 eighths. If ever you need to press pause on any of these slides so that you can catch up with filling in anything you've missed, etc. on these slides, just press pause, press play when you're ready for the next one. Question 5. These improper fractions turn or convert these improper fractions to mixed numbers. So remember here, 4 bits will make a whole one. We've actually got 5 bits. So 4 of those 5 will make a whole one, and there'll be 1 left over. So there'll be 1/4. The denominator will stay the same. With 6 for a whole one, we've got 23 bits. So how many lots of 6 can I make out of that? 6 fours are 24. I haven't got enough for 4 whole ones, so I've got 3 whole ones, and I'll have 5 left over. 3 6s are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. That's 5 bits left over, and your denominator will stay the same, 5 6. 2/5 add 1/5, so we're going to have 3/5. 8 ninths subtract 3 ninths, I'm going to be left with 5 ninths. Now this one I've got a whole one. So if you remember the lesson where we looked at making this into a fraction, we're looking at fifths, so I'm going to have 5/5. Take away 2/5 will leave me with 3/5. Work out these calculations. Give your answer in its simplest form. So we've got to look to see whether we can simplify on these. So 1/12 add 5/12 is 6/12. These are both even numbers, so I could half them, divide by 2, which will give me 3/6. And then I could think actually 3 and 6 are in the 3 times table, so I could divide by 3. And I would get the same answer as if I did it in one chunk, which you've just seen. Sorry, I pressed the button too soon. You might notice that actually 6 and 12 are in the same 6 times table. So 6 divided by 6 will be 1. 12 divided by 6 will be 2. It would be the same answer if you did it halving it, 3/6. So 3/6. 3 goes into 6. Sorry, 3/6. 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 into 6 will go 2 times. So it's exactly the same answer if you did it in the 2 jumps, okay? It doesn't matter which way you do. as long as you get to the simplified version. If you've got 1 as a numerator, you know you've gone as far as you can. They don't all make 1 as a numerator though, so don't feel you've got to have 1 on the top. 13/20 subtract 7/20, so we're left with 6/20. Again, we've got even number. We could divide by 2 to get 3/10. In fact, I think that's all we can do. Yes, because nothing goes into 3 and into 10. So this is an example where we haven't got 1 on the numerator, but there's nothing that will go into 3 and into 10. So that is it in simplified version. Write each fraction in its simplest form. So again, we can look and think, oh, we've got 2 even numbers. We could divide by 2. It's 3/5. In fact, 3 and 5 are both prime numbers, so nothing's going to go into 3 and into 5 apart from 1, or 3 and 5. 18 and 24. So this is where knowledge of tables is really important. We could just divide by 2. I'm not sure if I've divided by 2 or done it in one jump. I've done it in one jump. You could divide by 2 and then divide by 3 again. Or if you spotted that these are both actually in the 6 times table, you can divide by 6 in one go. It'll be 3/4. 6 into 18 goes 3 times. 6 into 24 goes 4 times. Remember, check with the inverse. 3 times 6 is 18. 4 times 6 is 24. Just to check. If you've done it, divide by 2 and then divided by 3, that's absolutely fine as well. Write each fraction in its simplest form. So 12/16. Okay, I'm dividing by 4 straight away. Again, it doesn't matter if you divide by 2 and then realise you've still got even numbers and divide by 2 again. So just check with my inverse. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. Yes. 90/100. They both end in 0, so I know straight away I can divide by 10. That will give me 9/10. And there's nothing that goes into 9 and into 10, so that's in its simplest form. Okay, this was getting on in the lessons that we've just been looking at over Unit 5, so now we've got to work out a fraction. Okay, so 18 is our quantitative money that we're looking at now, and we need to divide by 6 because we need to find 1/6. So we divide by 6. 18 divided by 6 is 3, so it's £3. Here we've got 12 kilometres and we need to find 3/4. So we're going to find 1/4 first. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. That gives us 1/4, but we want 3/4. So we need to multiply our answer by 3. So 3 kilometres times 3 will give us 9 kilometres. So 3/4 of 12 kilometres is 9 kilometres. 5/7 of 21. So we need to find a 7th first, 1/7. So we divide by 7. That will give us 3 kilograms. So then we need to find 5. Whoops, where's my mouse gone? Come back, here he goes. So I need to do my answer times 5. Okay, so my answer is 3 kilograms times 5 because I want 5/7. 3 times 5 is 15 kilograms. Okay, 4/9 of 54. So I need to divide by 9 to find 1/9. That equals 6 millimetres. But I want 4/9, so I need to do 6 millimetres times 4. Equals 24. I forgot to make that bit red. Never mind. Right, write each decimal as a fraction in its simplest form. Okay, so we've got 2 digits here, so we know it's going to be over 100. Here's our decimal, there's 2 numbers after it, so it's going to be over 100, so it's 13/100. I can't simplify that. 13's a prime number, so only 1 or 13 will go into 13, and 13 does not go into 100. So that is in its simplest form. Okay, I've only got one digit after the decimal, so that means it's going to be over 10. And what have I got? I've got 7 over 10. Again, there's nothing that goes into 7 and into 10. 7 is another prime number, and that doesn't go into 10. 0.2, so it's one digit, so it's going to be over 10. But in this case, I've got two even numbers, so I can half them. I can divide by 2. So 2 by 2 is 1, 10 divided by 2 is 5, 1/5. Okay, I've got two digits here, so it's going to be over 100, 42 over 100. Both even numbers, so I could divide by 2. So that will give me 21 over 50. And there's nothing, I don't think, that will go into 21 into 50. So it's going to stay as 21 over 50. Write each fraction as a decimal. Okay, so we've got tenths. So that's the first column after the decimal, one place. So it's going to be 0.9. 9 tenths. This is your tenths column. 49 over 100, so there's going to be two digits. What two digits? These two digits, 0.49. Right, this one I haven't got tenths or hundredths. Now, if I divided by 2 to make that 10, I'd have a fraction on top, a decimal. So I don't really want that. So I'm going to multiply by 5 to get them over 100. So I'd have 35 over 100. So that's going to be over 100. There's going to be two numbers after the decimal. Which two numbers? These two numbers. Okay, this one, if I multiply by 2, I'll have it over tenths. So I can put it in my tenths column. Oh, I've gone into, right. I remember now what I was doing with this one. I've multiplied by 20 to show it as 40 over 100, which you could write then as 0.40. Okay, because there's hundredths, so we're two places, and we've got 40. But this 0 doesn't actually have any value, so you don't need to write that 0. Okay, so alternatively, we could do 5 times 2, which is 10. And if I did 5 times 2, it would give me 10. If I did 2 times 2, it would give me 4. And we would write that just as 0.4. Okay, so it doesn't matter. I would just multiply by 2 to get that straight away and get that straight away. It might be a little confusing if you changed that to hundredths and then wrote it like that and thought, no, I don't need that 0. Whichever way you feel comfortable with, but just remember on the end here, unless it said 2 decimal places, if a thing said 2 decimal places, you'd have to write the 0. But as that is, just simplifying, writing as a decimal, that 0 has no value. And I'm going to go to the next question because I'm waffling on that one. Write each percentage as a fraction in its simplest form. Okay, percentage. Percentage is out of 100. What's out of 100? 23 out of 100. It does say in its simplest form, but there's nothing that goes into 23 and into 100, so that is in its simplest form. 60 out of 100. We could simplify this. We could divide by 10 because they both end in 0. That would give us 6 tenths. They're both even numbers, so I can divide by 2 again, and that would give us 3/5. Okay? You could spot and think, actually, I could divide by 20 straight away. 2 times 10 is 20. 20 into 60 goes 3 times. 20 into 100 goes 5 times. As I've said, doesn't matter which way around you go. Don't know why that's there. That's stopped. There we go. 8%, 8 out of 100, 8 over 100. They're both even numbers. So I could divide by 2. That will give me still 2 even numbers, so I could divide by 2 again. Or I could just divide by 4 in one go. Doesn't matter as long as you get to the same answer. Okay? If you divide by 2, you'll have 2 even numbers, so you could divide by 2 again. Exactly the same as dividing by 4. 75%, so 75 over 100. And this is one of those 3 fractions that I said you should know: 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4. This is the one that's 3/4. If I divided both by 25, I would get to 3/4. You could divide by 5 because they end in 5 and 0. So you could divide by 5. You will get answers that will divide by 5 again. So again, doesn't matter as long as you get to the simplified form. Write each fraction as a percentage. So percentage, we need it to be out of 100. This one is out of 100. What is it? It's 42 out of 100. So that's 42%. This one is 3/10. So if I multiply by 10, I will get hundredths. 30 hundredths, so that's 30%. 41 over 50, so 50, if I times that by 2, I'll end up with 82 over 100, which is 82%. 25 on the bottom here, so I need to multiply that by 4 to get 100, so I multiply the top by 4. Which would be 44 over 100, which is 44%. Question 15. I've just got a 3 there. I don't know what that's doing. Right, copy and complete this table. So this is the fraction here, and this one is ones that you should know. 1/2 as a decimal is 0.5. If you just check on your calculator, remember this line is divide, so it's 1 divided by 2. You will get an answer of 0.5. And that's 5/10. So if we multiplied that by 10, 5 times 10 is 50. So it'd be 50%. So if you can spot here, we've got 0.5 is 50%. So 70% is going to be 0.7. That's 7 in the 10th column. So it's going to be 7 over 10. 25% is 1/4. Along with 1/2, 1/4, and 3/4. These are the ones that you should know: the fraction, the decimal fraction, and the percentage of 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4. We haven't got 3/4 here. So 6%. This is 6 out of 100, if you remember. So it's going to be 6 hundredths. So it's going to be 0.06. That's 6 over 100, which would simplify to be 3 over 50. I should have put the 6 over 100 there, shouldn't I? Oh, there are 12 dogs in a training class. 5 of them are spaniel. What fraction of dogs are spaniels? Remember, it's the numerator is how many you're asked for. The denominator on the bottom is how many dogs altogether. So there's 5 spaniels. There's 12 dogs altogether. 5/12. Last page. You have done so well to get this far. There are 8 men and 6 women members in a diving club. What fraction of the members are women? There's 6 women. How many in the club? We need to add these 2 together. So it's going to be 6 women, 14 members, because you've added 6 and 8. So that makes 6/14. It doesn't say in its simplest form, so you could leave it like that. Or you could spot, actually, it's both even numbers. I could half it. If this was an exam question, I would show it exactly like this. I would show 6/14. I might put divide by 2 here and show 3/7 as an answer. You've shown both there then. Even though it didn't say simplify, that's a good way to write it. Work out 10% of 40. So work out 10%, we divide by 10. So 40 divided by 10 is £4. Work out 50%. Okay, so 50%, you should know that that's a half, so I can just divide by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9 centimetres. 30% of 60, so if I find 10%, by dividing by 10. That gives me 10%. I want 30. So if I do my 10% times 3, so 6 times 3 will give me 18 kilometres. 25%. This is again one of those three fractions that I asked you to remember. I know that that's a quarter, so I can just divide by 4. It's 50. If you couldn't remember that that's a quarter, you could find 10%. You could half that 10% to find your 5%, and you could double the 10% to find your 20. Add the 20 and the 5 together, and you will still get 50 kilograms. 7 out of 10 people own a pet. 7 out of 10. Write this as a percentage. So 7 own a pet. There's 10 people, so that's 7/10, but it's out of a percentage, so we want to multiply by 10 to make it out of 100. 7 times 10 is 70. 70 parts out of 100 is 70%. Work out 16% of £30. It says use jottings to help you. I would have used jottings everywhere, personally, but there we go. So let's find 10% of 30. Where have I done this? Over here. 10% of 30 equals 3. I need to find 6%, so I'm going to find 5%. So 5% is half of £3, which is £1.50. So I've got 10%, add 5%, so I've got 15%. I need 16, so I need 1 more percent. So if I divide my 10% by 10 again, I'll find 30%. So £3, where's my mouse gone? Here he is. Divide by 10. So remember, it moves over one place. So it's going to go the other side of the decimal, and it becomes 30 pence. So now I've got 10, 15, 16%. So it's £3, add £1.50, add 30 pence, equals £4.80. Okay, I put this little rule up here just to remind you of this one, just for those that were getting a little bit forgetful, because we didn't do an awful lot on this. We just really touched on this. Choose a decimal number from the circle to complete each of these statements. To find 10% of an amount, you multiply by 0.1. So to find 20%, you multiply by 0.2. To find 70%, you would multiply by 0.7. Okay? They should all be in here. Yeah. 0.1, 0.2, 0.7. Okay, that was the last slide, that last question number. So if you make sure you've got your marking done, hopefully in a different colour pen, so that you can see where you need to go back and check up on these things. And you should have a score out of 21. So thank you for having a go at that on your own. It was a review of the whole of the Unit 5 that we've looked at for the past few lessons. Thank you also for marking your work, and maybe if you could email your scores through, that would be good help as well. Next, we'll be looking at sort of strengthening your understanding of fractions and percentages, and then to extending your knowledge in preparation for the end of Unit 5 quiz. Thank you for watching and listening to this lesson, and I'll catch up with you in the strengthen lesson.